Okay, welcome. I want to basically, before I get too much started, I want to basically start by showing you what this instrument is essentially kind of capable of effectively. But what I have available is a lovely application if you've never dealt with a modular synthesizer before and can't either A, afford a modular synth, or B, you don't have the room for a modular synth. I highly recommend VCV Rack, which is a fantastic collection of many different things. And thanks to a wonderful user, and I can't remember his actual name at the moment, but I'll try to give credits in the credits. Uh, this guy actually made a patch that basically mimics the concept of the Benjolin. And so I used it as a starting point to try to figure out what's going on. And it is quite it's as simple as it is, there's a lot of cross modulation going on in this thing. So it's actually kind of fairly complex in nature. So this is VCV Rack, and it's currently running the Benjolin patch. And we can maybe take a look at some of the stuff that's going on with this. There is, on the upper left-hand side, this is actually a really cool thing, and I don't really know that much about it, because I'm not a VCV Rack expert. I just know enough to just sort of get by, basically. But the deal in this case is that there are a total of basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 controls. So I was sort of thinking to myself that if you had like a three-dimensional controller, you're already controlling 6 things with just moving the objects around, sort of theremin style, kind of like. And it's really not a precise, you can't play melodies on this thing really. So don't worry about that. It's just, it's just a sound maker. It's just a noise maker. We might be able to make some things with it later on once we have, demonstrated the basic concept. We might be able to do some cool things inside Unreal. And I don't know, because I don't know what the capabilities of Metasounds currently is, but as far as this extendability and stuff like that. So what's going on right now, and we can pick this up, and I've got a reverb on it right now, so it's really lovely, and we probably have a reverb actually on the one in Unreal as well. Okay, so I'm gonna take the wet out. So this is what it is. Totally dry, nothing going on, basically. So what happens is, okay, so I'm going to take out the resonance. Okay, so there's basically a situation in which there is, I should probably just double click these and just put them all back in there. Okay, it's really boring now, right? Super boring, very basic. But the idea is you can use this thing called the Wrangler. And the Wrangler is the one that I'm talking about, the chaotic oscillator, essentially. So it's being modulated by this chaotic oscillator that's running through a shift register that's converting the analog to digital and then back to analog in order to be able to generate. Of course, it's all virtual analog. Everything here is, digital. But the idea is that basically you can take this thing, and if you start running the Wrangler, you get less consistent values. Now, of course, this doesn't happen, if you turn this up, it'll start actually kind of making a pitch. And then if you choose that Wrangler, you'll get more stuff. Now, of course, this just sounds like scratchy stuff. But what happens is when you start adding the resonance from the filter into it, you get some possibilities. It starts kind of making some cool things. And then you could also then put the Wrangler on the filter. So the same weird chaotic oscillator can be applied to the filter. So the filter can do all kinds of really cool things. And you can do things, and there's a triangle out and a square wave out and stuff like that. So this is pretty kind of interesting and weird. And that's the digital part that I'm talking about, right? Where it's taking that analog waveform and it's doing this almost sample and hold thing, but it's being converted by the shift register. So it almost kind of sounds like it's trying to play like a little sequence, but it can be weird or chaotic or whatever. And then, of course, if we... So it almost sounds like a random sequencer at times. Anyway, so you can see it has a lot of crazy stuff going on. It's a little bit always difficult to explain and everything like that. But, you know, it's not a bad patch, and it's a really good thing to experiment with. This particular thing, by the way, is sort of like a macro that essentially it's patching all the other things that are in this whole patch overall. Ignore this one here. That's a reverb. Everything else here is relevant to the actual Benjolin patch, and mostly it's a lot of mixers. And I don't mean mixers in terms of audio mixers, but mixers in terms of control voltage mixers and switchers of different kinds and splitters of different kinds. Now, right now, I'll just show you what things look like. Let me take this all out for a second. And of course, if you add reverb, it's going to make it a lot more interesting and stuff like that. And before this, I actually had like a resonator that I got from sort of a Mutable Instruments resonator, basically. It's not from Mutable Instruments, it's a copy. But anyway, the idea is that it can make really interesting sounds when you run it through the resonator and then run it through the reverb and stuff like that. But that's getting ahead of things a little bit. To just show you a little bit of what's going on here, I can... Cable opacity, yeah, there it is. So... actually what's going on is all this sort of stuff. But the nice thing about it is that this cable opacity control, if you put that all the way at 0, then what happens is that it only shows a cable when you mouse over it. So for example, right there, I might be able to move this over in the other thing. Hang on one second. Like that. See, okay? So right over here it says, I think PW, I think it's saying PWM. FM, sorry. FM as in frequency modulation. So you see this frequency modulation, and if you roll over that with your mouse, it shows the connection going down towards some other place, which it's going to be tricky to go over here. I had to move this again because I don't have I'm not doing zooming or anything like that with the mouse control or anything like that. But yeah, so it goes down to all the way down here to this CV mix, which other things are being hooked up to, and that sort of stuff. But there's this shift register. This is the thing that converts sort of sample and hold to like this kind of stair-steppy kind of, semi sort of sequency kind of thing, which anyway, it's really kind of interesting. And the filter that it's going to be using. So, and what's interesting again is that these simple oscillators are the ones that are doing it. This is the most basic oscillator that a VCV Rack has, and they're just not even oscillators; they're LFOs, really. But they can go up to audio rate and everything like that, so that's possible. There's a couple of compressors. There's a filter, and that's all the way connected all the way back up to the CV mix objects and stuff like that. There's a lot of cross patching going on. It's a kind of complex thing, but the actual components are relatively simple. Like the actual parts of the components are relatively simple. So I thought it would be a good project to work on to see, maybe a challenge to be able to do this. So we'll go back into Unreal in the next video, but I want to show you just sort of kind of where things go. And obviously, you know, if you can mess around with this, and it actually really, really encourages you to twiddle knobs constantly. Like it's much better if you're constantly changing things. If you just kind of tweak it a little bit, you'll be like, oh, it kind of sounds the same. But if you move the knobs a bunch, you'll just get a wide variety of different stuff. And of course, if you add a little bit more reverb, you know, you get a little bit more interesting things going on. Right? Anyway. Anyway, I hope that's that's interesting and fun for you. I like listening to the crazy sounds that this thing can make, and it can be very beautiful and musical, but it takes a little bit of effort to kind of dial in the right kinds of sounds. Anyway, we'll see you again in the next video, which we will be in Unreal. And I won't really have too much to show you there, really. It's going to be pretty basic. I don't really have anything hooked up just yet. But we might take a little adventure and see if we can hook some things up. But yeah, it took me a long time to just even get to that point, and I'm not even actually controlling any audio at the moment with meta sounds. But we will try to continue doing this on a semi-regular basis. So I hope this helps you get your weird game audio on. Take care.